Joining us now to discuss the potential fallout for not only Tucker but the university is Mark Lee, expert business and marketing strategist. Mark, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
So is this a black eye for Michigan State University? I mean, right now at this point, it is a he said, she said. Tucker again has denied any wrongdoing here in just putting his foot down, saying that this was a consensual relationship between himself and Brenda Tracy.
It's definitely a black eye for Michigan State University. Let me just start off by the way saying Michigan State University is a great institution. All right, just want to say off the top. But this is a significant black eye for the university. And for a couple of reasons. One is you're looking at what's happening, what happened with the whole Nassar situation, right? And then there have been other situations in the last year as relates to the football team. And now this situation with Mel Tucker. And so you look at the overall image for Michigan State University, to answer your question, it definitely is a black eye.
But in this case, and we don't know all the details.
No, we
really don't. So we are speculating here. We don't know all the details. And so when you look at this case, if it were to come out that Tucker did nothing wrong, perhaps poor judgment, let's put it there, and let's say for argument's sake, he did nothing wrong in a sense, is it unfair for there to be a black eye on the university and saying, okay, here we are all over again? Because this case is much different, at least at this point where we stand tonight, than the Nassar situation.
I understand what you're saying, but this is a very high-profile individual at a public university, a public institution. And so therefore, that's an issue. And as we were chatting before, we had our conversation a few moments ago, he has a morality clause in his contract. And yes, it's poor judgment. And so the university protected itself by saying, if you violate the morals clause in the contract as an employee of this institution, we could suspend you, we could fire you without cause, meaning that they do not have to pay the remaining terms of this contract. So I understand what you're saying in terms of how this is set up. If he goes through this whole process and he's totally clean and it didn't happen in theory, right? The fact of the matter is he violated the terms of that morality clause in his contract.
As far as representing the school in a proper way.
So people are saying, well, this is a personal situation. It is to a certain extent, but you're an employee of a public institution, and he's in the role representing Michigan State University. That is the issue.
He had a very, very lengthy statement that he released yesterday through his legal team, and it went on and on and on. And to, again, speculate here, but when you read in between the lines here, it does not sound like he stands a chance at this hearing come October 5th and 6th.
I was surprised his attorneys let him release that two-page statement because, if you read it thoroughly, there's more information that's coming out that could probably be used against him. Again, I'm not an attorney, so let me say that up front. But I think there's some information in there that could be used against him. And there's some additional admissions as part of that statement. So I was really surprised as attorneys advised him. So I'm assuming they advised him or they gave him the approval to release that statement. I wouldn't have gone there.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to go out on a limb, just reading in between the lines there, it sounds like he's never going to coach a game at Michigan State University again. Now, again, I am just speculating there, but let's go back to the handling of this from Michigan State University.
Yeah.
If you go on their football website, there is not a single mention of Mel Tucker being suspended, not getting paid. There's nothing there. You would have no idea if you go to their website to know that he is not coaching Saturday's game against 8th-ranked Washington.
Yeah, I guess they figure this is top news everywhere, right? Obviously on CBS News Detroit, top story, as well as elsewhere across the country.
But for a school that's supposed to be essentially,
but it's not uncommon if someone violates an ethics clause that immediately they can't be scrubbed off the website. So you will find
his bio is still on the website. I'm just saying there's not even a single story there saying that Coach Mel Tucker has been suspended without pay.
Because they don't want to draw additional attention to them on their own website. That's why they're doing that.
But let's go back to the forthcoming situation that we're talking about with Michigan State University. Have they been forthcoming enough? Their president, Teresa Woodward, says that she didn't know all of the details of this Tucker complaint, the university, and she knew some information, but not really all the details. Should we have known more? Should it have come to this where he's suspended, and it appears as if he's suspended because the USA Today report comes out?
Yeah, I think that's the issue. The issue is how has Michigan State responded to this? And to many people, I think the concern is, were they hiding something? I understand about safety and security. They want to keep all parties confidential in that particular situation. But I think the challenge is, there was 6 or 7 months of elapsed, whatever the case might have been. And some people felt as though that MSU has sat on the information and sat on this investigation. They will come back to say, so we're trying to protect all the parties involved. The question here is, how forthcoming should they have come? And I think to many people, it's a public institution. Obviously, you want to keep the students engaged. You want to keep the Board of Regents engaged, the Board of Governors, the Board of Regents engaged. And I think that's where the issue is. People feel like that they didn't come totally clean on the situation.
The other side of that is, let's say they did not have enough information to say, we're going to suspend our head football coach because we don't have enough information because he's denying it. She's telling one story. There was not a police report filed. And he contests that if she was so distraught over this phone call that she continued her relationship with him.
Yeah, again, this is all speculation.
Sure.
This is a he says, she says, so I can't comment on his perspective versus
Correct,
her
but I'm
perspective.
just taking the perspective of the university as we go down this road here. Let's say they did not have enough information to go, okay, well, we can suspend him now, but the report comes out, and if they don't suspend him, then that makes them look bad as well. So they're really in a situation where they can't win.
It's a no-win situation for them. The thing about Title IX is it's supposed to be confidential, right? And from the reports that I've read, is her name became leaked. Someone leaked her name.
And she's upset with it, as well as a trustee.
That's exactly right. So then she apparently went to the USA Today, gave them the paperwork, and then they published the story. So up until that point, so Michigan State probably up until that point did the right thing, right? They want to follow the process. They want to keep it certainly anonymous. They didn't want anybody to know, confidential. But then once the story, in her mind, they mentioned her name, someone leaked her name, then it went to the USA Today. It became a public story. No question about that.
So let's play devil's advocate here. Let's put you in a scenario.
Sure.
You are the head of Michigan State University. This information comes across your desk months and months and months ago. What's going on here? These allegations. What would you have done differently than what you saw from Michigan State University?
First of all, if that report comes across my desk, I'm going to follow the university's protocols. I'm going to contact the attorneys and say, what should we do at this institution? Should we go out and make a public statement? Should we not say anything at this point? So at this point in the process, I certainly would have reached out to the university's compliance department, the attorneys, and followed their advice and counsel.
And you feel like they did not do that here?
I wasn't there, so I'm not going to speculate. But just kind of reading in between the lines, it seems like something fell through the cracks.
Well, the coach recently signed a fully guaranteed 10-year, $95 million contract extension a few years ago. MSU could void about $80 million. Stay with us. We will continue this conversation after the break. Welcome back. We continue our discussion on Mel Tucker's suspension following an alleged sexual misconduct. Kenny Jacoby, the investigative reporter who broke this story, had this to say about the university's handling.
There is deep mistrust on the MSU campus from students, from employees, from alumni, and in the East Lansing community after the betrayal that was the Larry Nassar scandal. They repeatedly missed opportunities to stop one of the most prolific sexual abusers in American history. And so, when MSU takes this long to suspend the coach without pay, people tend to think of that as they're covering this up, and that doesn't sit well with most of these people.
And Mark Lee, the president of the Lee Group Michigan LLC, is still with us. And when you hear what the reporter from the USA Today just said there, do you agree with him?
Yeah, I agree with him. I agree. There is a lack of trust, I'm sure, at Michigan State right now. That's a key phrase. I think there's a lack of trust because, you're entrusting. These students are paying resources. They're paying their dollars. They're paying tuition. And I think in the way this case has been handled, the way it's evolved, the communication gaps. I don't think the university's been totally transparent, number one, and that leads to this thing called trust. So there's a significant trust issue with the students and the entire population in East Lansing.
And when you're dealing with students, when you're dealing with children, in a sense, it's a bad situation. I mean, and the football coach, whether he's in the right or in the wrong, we will at some point likely find out. He's put the school in a bad situation. And so do you believe there is a deep mistrust among the community with MSU?
I think there is a sense of mistrust. I don't know if it's deep at this point, but again, let's go back to the Nassar situation. The last 10 years have been rough for MSU. And so a lot of people are questioning the way things are being handled. This was a situation where they had the opportunity of maybe improving how the situation could have been handled even up to this point. I think that leads to the ongoing mistrust that you're seeing with the student population and maybe the administration. I've had a couple of alums, I have one in New York City who sent me a text saying he's deeply embarrassed by the situation and that he's deeply hurt by the situation. And I would argue too that a lot of the students on campus are feeling the same way. So I think all this contributes to that lack of trust on the campus.
How do you think this will impact Michigan State University, their partners, alum, as well as trustees going forward, and of course their boosters?
Well, I would tell you that Michigan State is a very good community partner, meaning look what they're doing in Detroit. They're investing their resources in Detroit. So I want to make sure we give them proper due there. In terms of looking ahead and what's going to happen, it's a huge student population. It's a huge campus. It has great partners. I don't think short term they're going to lose their partnerships. I don't think short term they're going to lose sponsorships. I really don't.
But if we do find out they were indeed mishandling this situation.
Well, that's my next comment was going to be as this process evolves. So it depends on how it evolves moving forward. If there's a sense of lack of transparency, lack of communication, information, there's a misrepresentation of the facts. If I'm a business and I see that, I sense it, business partners don't want to be affiliated with that type of relationship. So a lot of this is going to depend on how the university handles this moving forward.
Do you think moving forward that there's a scenario where you see Mel Tucker coaching this team again?
In my personal opinion, no. I think he has he's burned a bridge. I think that he's violated that inherent trust between his role as the head football coach and the university. I don't see him coming back to Michigan State at all as a head coach.
Regardless of how this turns out, as far as right now, as again, it's a he said, she said. He contests that this was consensual. There was nothing that he did other than perhaps poor judgment. Nothing that he did as far as it was illegal or anything like that. But if you're a parent, okay, and you are sending your student, your child to school there as a student, or you're even a player on the football team, you have a child on the football team, would you want them to play for Mel Tucker regardless of how this turns out going forward?
In my personal opinion, people could probably disagree with me on this, I wouldn't want my youngster playing football for Mel Tucker.
Yeah, and so what do you think is going to happen here with this hearing? Do you think Mel Tucker will get a fair shake at this hearing? He calls it a sham right out of the gate, which is a really bad sign for him to say this a month ahead of this hearing.
That was not a smart move. I just agree with that, calling it a sham and calling it other issues like that. I think what's going to happen at the hearing is that basically both sides will present their scenario. They're going to ask questions. They can cross-examine each other. And basically, after they go through the process, a ruling will be handed down. Now, you got to remember, this is not a prosecution. It's not a criminal trial.
Right. She has not filed a police report, according to her attorney.
So let's make sure that's crystal clear. But one issue that Mel Tucker is going to have, if you believe the reports, we've heard about it, if you read the report as well, there are inconsistencies in his report. When he had that conversation with the Title IX compliance officer at Michigan State University, apparently there have been some inconsistencies. So once he goes to that hearing, his case is going to have to be airtight. But unfortunately, with him speaking publicly, that report's been submitted. They're going to pounce on the inconsistencies in his story.
All right, so Mark Lee, president of the Lee Group, we appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you.
Mark Lee, the president of the Lee Group Michigan LLC, joining us tonight as we discuss the Mel Tucker situation going on at Michigan State University.